And so we want to get started with the program. I want to thank everyone for coming out. We've got some housekeeping chores to do in the very beginning, because oftentimes you get caught up in the program and some of the most important things get forgotten. And I want to make sure we don't do that. First of all, I want to take this moment to thank the volunteers who came and helped set up this particular facility. Would you join me in giving them a round of applause? Dave Grogan, Paul Driver, Louis Bracey, Josh Hatch. These are some of the volunteers that assisted. And now I want to ask all of the planning members' committees to come forward. James Kitchen, Vincent, would you please come forward? Dee Goodwin, Asha Smith, Pete Hill, would you please come forward? And the word we use is quickly. Tamika. The reason I want them to come forward, because I know something we're putting events together, and too often people don't really know about the work and the planning that go into this. So I want to take the time to acknowledge these men and women. And Mr. County Executive, if you would stand with them as we get this photograph of our official committee. Would you mind standing there for a photograph, please? Just a quick photograph. I just want to have everyone again join me in giving a great round of applause to these folks. Let's give them a great hand. Thank you so very, very much. 4 years ago, Caucus of African American Leaders, in collaboration with the County Executive's Office, decided that in the month of February we would host an annual event honoring what we call the few of the many. And for those who are knowledgeable about African American history, we know there have been many, many people who've made tremendous contributions. Some of those persons are not household names, but they made history. In Anne Arundel County, we have people like the late Dr. Ernest T. Allen, first elected to the House of Delegates, first African American to be elected to the Maryland General Assembly from Anne Arundel County. We have the only woman in the history of Anne Arundel County to get elected, the only black woman, and we will have to change that, but the only black woman to ever get elected to the Anne Arundel County Council was a woman named Sarah Carter, the late Councilwoman Sarah Carter. We've had many trailblazers who have made a difference in the county. There's people whose names that were mentioned, many would not know. Dr. Theodore Johnson, who was the first physician to make it possible for African American women who during a segregated time could not and were not allowed to birth babies at Anne Arundel Medical Center, what was then called Annapolis General Hospital. And here's something I told a group last night in Dale, Maryland. When you look at a lot of people's biographies, anybody in Annapolis who's over the age of 60, you will discover that on their birth certificate, it says they were born in Baltimore, Maryland. But I want you to understand, they weren't born in Baltimore, Maryland by choice. They were born in Baltimore, Maryland because there was a system that says that if you were an African American and you were a woman, you could not give birth here. So a lot of women had their babies at Johns Hopkins, which is why some people birth certificates show that. And there's another thing that I want people to know, and if you couldn't have a child, there were a lot of women who were midwives who did a marvelous job of bringing people into this world. One of the midwives brought my mother into this world, but they made a mistake. They actually put the wrong date that she was born, the wrong year, and she for many years, and also the wrong day that she was born, and so for many, many years, she was celebrating her birthday on January 9th when it was actually January 12th. She thought she was born in 1917, and she actually was born in 1916. But she lived to be 104 years old. So in collaboration with the County Executive's Office, we want to just take a moment to pause to look at the men and women who've come this way, and men and women who today are making historic contributions, even today. And so what we wanted to do with this program is to recognize a few of them. We realize that there are many, many, many individuals who have made huge contributions to Anne Arundel County. There were 2 awards that have been created. Both of them honor true trailblazers themselves. One was, of course, the Sojourner Truth Award. This is an award that was given to Sojourner Truth, who, when you know her history, an incredible woman. Real name was Isabella, had a number of children, and long before women talked about women's rights, you'll discover that she gave a famous speech in New York where she said, "Ain't I a woman too?" and helped to broaden people's perspective on women's rights in this country. And then we have an award named after someone that many of us knew personally. Come on, man. Congressman Elijah Cummings, who had that famous saying, "Come on, man." So these 2 awards are named in these individuals' honors. The people you'll be hearing tonight who will be recipients of these awards will speak for themselves. I want to now bring to the podium to bring some welcome remarks Madam Chair of the Anne Arundel County Council, the Honorable Lisa Rodman.
Good evening, everyone. As Mr. Snowden said, my name is Lisa Rodman, and I'm currently serving as the chair of the Anne Arundel County Council. It is a great honor to be here this evening. I'd just like to recognize my colleagues that are here. County Executive Stuart Pittman, obviously. I see Senator Sarah Alfrith, Delegate Dana Jones, I believe Delegate Shanika Henson is here by representation.
Yes.
Delegate Mike Rogers is in the house. I see 2 of my council colleagues, Councilwoman Allison Pickard from District 2, Councilwoman Sarah Lacey from District 1. And I know we have several alder folk here. I know that Alderwoman Rhonda Pendle Charles is here.
Yes.
And is there anyone else that I neglect? Oh, Judge, one of my good friends, Judge Vicki Gibson. Thank you. Thank you. Please point out anyone else that I need to recognize. Thank you so much. So thank you, Carl, for inviting me to speak tonight. It's really a privilege and an honor to be here. Tonight's awards, in my mind, take on a special tone as we are in challenging times. The pandemic that we've lived through for nearly 2 years appears to be giving us a small respite. But if there's one thing that we have learned over the last 2 years is that we still need to be prepared for anything. We don't say when the pandemic is over, it will let us know if it ever is. A couple other celebrations, though. Just over a year ago, a little more than a year ago, we defeated the most overtly racist president in recent memory. I am still celebrating from January 20th, 2021. On the flip side, though, we know that he may be gone from the office, but his presence is still way too present. His followers are still chasing his legacy, and the white supremacy that he has helped breed is proliferating. In our county, the number of homicides has decreased. The crime has actually been decreasing, which is wonderful news. On the flip side, though, we have had horribly brazen crimes like the one that took place in Robinwood 2 nights ago. And I would just ask everyone to take a moment and keep those families and those young people in your thoughts. Earlier this month, we have a school board that approved a new course covering African American history in Anne Arundel County. In my mind, that is a remarkable step forward. How can you know where you need to go if you don't know where you've been? But on the same token, just a few months ago, the county council narrowly defeated a ban of critical race theory, which we all know what that's code for. So in other words, we've had important successes, but we still have challenges, and we have to stay aware, alert, motivated. We cannot let down our guard. So in times like these, the leaders that we are honoring tonight, they're right here. This is wonderful. You really take on increased importance, regardless of what your field is. We have community servants. We have artists. We have people working in education, people mentoring young people. We have people in the field of law, in the health field, in business. No matter what you do, the people that are being honored here tonight have stepped up in a special way in whatever their field is. And we need to continue to have community members who will step up and show that kind of compassion. We need community members who are willing to take action. We need community members who can show courage in the face of adversity and discrimination and hate. Tonight's honorees have done each of those things. They provide not only the leadership that we need in these times, but also the inspiration for others to take action in the midst of all of the uncertainty we are facing. As we honor these individuals tonight, let each of us renew our individual commitment to continue to fight the good fight in whatever manner befits us the best. I know I am grateful for the inspiration that these honorees bring to this room and to our community this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa. Let's give her another round of applause. I want to recognize several other elected officials that's in the House as well. Scott Poyer, our clerk of court. Let's give him a round of applause. Former Alderman Kenny Kirby. Let's give him a round of applause. Jackie Alsop is the president of the NAACP. Jackie, let's give her a round of applause. We have our chief of police from Annapolis here, Chief Ed Jackson. Let's give him a round of applause. We have in the room, also to be recognized, my little note here, Reverend Jay Jones, who is the convener for the Caucus of African American Leaders on Maryland's Eastern Shore. Reverend Jones. Amy Cruz is with the ACLU, my favorite organization. And her better half is with her, Will Rao. Will Rao. One of the women who, in her own right, is a history maker, Dr. Charlestine Fairley, who's done so much. Dr. Fairley. Kevin Simmons is the director of our EOC, Office of Emergency Management. Kevin Simmons. We'll be recognizing others as we go along, as we go through this particular process. But let me take a moment to introduce our next speaker, who I had indicated to you was the one we collaborated with. Slogans have a way of defining a person. When the mayor of Annapolis ran, his slogan was, "One Annapolis." And individuals who heard that slogan heard a commitment to making Annapolis inclusive for everyone. He ran in 2017 on that platform. And as many of you know, he was resoundingly reelected in 2021 because it's something about leaders who try to bring people together that makes a huge difference. It is not by accident or coincidence or happenstance, as was pointed out by Lisa, that a divisive president was taken out of office. When Stuart Pittman ran, Stuart Pittman argued that he would be an inclusive member, an inclusive elected leader. He would get people involved. He would make a difference. And we all know that he has made a difference. Please join me in welcoming to the podium the Honorable Stuart Pittman.
Thank you, Carl. I've got Carl's phone here, so I can use your notes. Well, I want to thank everybody who put this together, too. I got the copy of the schedule that started at 4 o'clock when folks were here setting up the room and doing all the hard work. And so I want to thank everybody on my staff who did that, as well as the Caucus of African American Leaders, who's our partner in putting this event together. And I think one person who's very important who didn't get recognized is my chief of staff, who makes sure that I am here on time when I need to be, doing what I need to do, and sometimes even saying what I need to say, Dr. K. Bodgester Brown. But it was Carl Snowden's idea, like a lot of things are around here, it seems. The first year, he came to us and he said, for Black History Month, let's do something that is recognizing current history makers. And I love that idea because anybody who's doing good work and fighting for social justice today is making history. And, you know, we heard about this new African American history class in our school system, and my sister teaches at Annapolis High School. And sometimes I get little chatter, rumors, and things about what's been going on over there between administration and the curriculum people and the teachers. And this is a young woman who teaches a class in African American history, and the students are 100% African American, and they want to learn about current history, they're saying. Most of the curriculum is about the history of slavery. And they're saying, you know, we learned that enough. We're just tired of talking about that, right? We want to be talking about some more current stuff, social justice. And then there are people in the administration of the school system who are worried about straying from the curriculum because there are parents out there who are screaming and yelling about what's getting taught to the kids in the school. And it's making them nervous. I believe they'll do the right thing at Annapolis High School. I think the Anne Arundel County Public Schools will do the right thing, and they will not let that minority of parents who are screaming and yelling about critical race theory and you know, what their kids might be taught in school that might make them feel a little guilty about history. I think it's okay to feel a little guilty about history. It's okay to realize that history wasn't always right. But there's a lot of work left to do, and so that's why we recognize the people who are still doing it. And you know, I don't ever get to recognize by name the people who get these awards because you've got the whole presentation and everything. But I know most of you. There are seven men and 7 women. I did not know Sojourner Truth. I'm not that old, but I did get to know Elijah Cummings before he died, and when he came to the West County, Anne Arundel County Democrats and spoke not long before he died, it was one of the best speeches I've ever heard, one of the most moving. One of my favorite photographs was me and him together. I had a big old smile, and I think he might have even said some nice things about me that made me feel pretty good. So for the Elijah Cummings Award, we have Captain Robert Dews, John Dove, Elder Charles James, Karine Jordan, Cory McGregor, Errol Phillip, and Kyle Williams. So thank you all, 7 of you. Oh, there you are. You're all sitting up front. Okay. It's all. And I feel really good about this group because I know the work that you're doing. And I think we got the right folks. And then for the Sojourner Truth Award, we have Judge Claudia Barber. We have Kia Chandler. We have Deborah Hardy Cartwright. We have Donna Johnson. We have Monica Jones. We have Tiana Parker, who is representing Shanika Henson. And her dress is bright enough that Shanika is well represented tonight, I'm sure. I'm sure she's hard at work over there getting bills passed for us. And Joyce Raymond Phillips. So thank you, all of you, for the work that you're doing. And the history that you're making. And tonight is not about me or any of us elected officials. It's about the 14 of you. So I don't want to say a whole lot more. But I do want to say that the other theme of tonight is health and wellness. It's Black health and wellness. And I feel that I have to comment on that because I really honestly believe, and I say it over and over again, that government should be judged on the health and the wellness of the people it serves. It's not about the size of your tax base or whether you can attract businesses or residents from some competing jurisdiction. It's the health and wellness of the people in your jurisdiction. And we know what the disparities look like. We hear about them. Poverty Amidst Plenty is coming out. It shows that we have racial disparities in Anne Arundel County that are extreme, and this pandemic did not help. This pandemic has made it worse. So I think that honoring the work that we do on health and wellness is very, very important. And Black health and wellness is a term that I had not heard that term until I saw it, but I think it's a term that will stick and should stick. And we have a lot of work to do in this county to improve Black health and wellness. And we talk about the social determinants of health now in our health departments. Our health department's not just trying to keep people from getting COVID, but our health department is doing the gun violence intervention team, trying to prevent gun violence. They have the Health Equity and Racial Justice Department within the health department that we created that is making sure that we are looking at everything through a health equity lens. And then to make sure that it's not just in the health department, but it's throughout county government, we have our new Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, run by Pete Hill, who you met earlier, the big guy in the back, and Asha Smith. And I believe they have a new person coming on, so it is a real team and an incredibly effective team. And I want to just tell you, I will sit down, I know I want to tell you, I'm pulling a Carl Snowden on you. I want to tell you that we had a cabinet meeting today. We only have them in county government quarterly. And when I say cabinet, I mean about 40 people. I mean everybody who runs a department or a quasi-government department, and there seem to be a lot of them. There's about 40 of them. And one of the things that Pete and Asha have been tasked to do is to ensure that every one of those 40 departments is looking at their work through an equity lens. And at our last cabinet meeting, they explained what that equity lens was all about. And now they're out in the community explaining what that equity lens is doing. And at this meeting, we heard some reports from departments that had had some training from Pete and Asha, who had amazingly good things to say. And they have all just completed a thing that has a title that I think is fantastic. I don't know if you all came up with this. It's an assessment, but it's a Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Maturity Assessment. What is the maturity of your department on EDI? And they're asked some tough questions, and they put that out there. And Pete and Asha are going back to each one of them and saying, okay, let's get you a little bit more mature now and continue and do better work. So that's all Black history. That's all going to make us better as a county. That's all going to make Anne Arundel County the best place, not just for some, but for all, like the signs say. And I want to say that We still do have a lot of work to do. Not everybody is always happy with the out. I mean, I drove in and I had some protesters, and they weren't coming from the far right. They were people who generally I've been working alongside and who I respect. And it has to do with the Police Accountability Act and the Police Accountability Board legislation that the County Council is about to consider. And I respect what they're doing. I encourage them to go to the council and push the amendments that they want. And I will say that what we have put forward is what we believe fits within the state law and what we believe can pass the county council. But we got to have the conversation, man. We got to look at from every single angle. So I'm okay with a little bit of protest here, a little bit of protest there, as long as I get through eventually. And I want to thank all of you for being part of these movements and part of the movement for social justice, racial justice in Anne Arundel County. We'll get there. We'll make progress. We won't get there tomorrow, but we'll get there eventually. So thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Courtney, would you please stand, Courtney? I want people to see Courtney. We've got young people running for public office, and we need people like Courtney. So I just want to recognize Courtney. Also, I want to recognize one of the distinguished leaders in our community who's made a significant difference. He's going to be honored at the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Awards dinner, and that is Apostle Antonio Palmer. Those of us who understand history and understand the importance of it know it's very important to record history. I see Vince Leggett here, one of our local historians. Let's give Vince a round of applause. Monica Lindsay, thank you for what you do. You're one of those protesters out there. And one of my favorite people, you know, I just understand history. I really do. And there are times that people do not understand, decades later, the importance that people have made. And we have a history maker with us. I'm just so proud of her. I've seen the things she's done. Most people will not know her by name. Most history makers who make these tremendous contributions, not necessarily people you'll know by name, but you know the work they do. Their work speaks for them. Eliza May Robinson is going to turn 90 years old Friday, and Eliza May Robinson led the longest rent strike in the history of the city of Annapolis. 90 years old. I love her. I know what a history maker looks like, what she talks like, what she feels like. We understand as we move into the awards portion of the program, I just want to lay out this one piece for people. Local history. Gave people that little piece about going to the hospital from Anne Arundel County and Annapolis and having to go to Johns Hopkins. Health and wellness. It's part of the theme that we have. I always reference my mother because she meant so much to me, but she taught me so much. My mother I asked my mother this question one time: how did African Americans in Anne Arundel County survive in 1929? In 1929, there were no social programs. None existed. How did they survive? Racism was the order of the day. Segregation was a way of life. How did they survive, I wanted to know. My mother told me something that I think will serve us well for generations yet to come. She said when people found themselves oppressed, they had to turn toward one another, not on one another. and that men and women of that era who had little shared what they had. Fishermen, those who lived in Annapolis who were fishermen and oystermen, bartered with farmers. My grandfather was a farmer down in Davidsonville, where Stuart Pittman comes from. My grandfather was a farmer. And so people learned to share together. And that's what we have here tonight. The honorees that we are honoring are men and women who have shared their life experiences. They've contributed. Some of them are very young and will contribute even more. Their best days are ahead of them, not behind them. I am just so proud of each of these honorees. And so what we're going to do is the county exec is going to stand near that backdrop. And then I'm going to call the name of the honoree who will come up and get the award. Jim, who's going to, James, you're going to be doing you coming up? You want to come up here? Okay. So just so and we're going by the program that's listed in the book with the honorees. And I think we're going to start with the men? We're starting with the men, okay. Hello, men. I know why. We're starting with the men because we want to leave the best for last, right? Right. All right, okay. Our first honoree really is Robert Dews, and Robert is just a magnificent individual. He has contributed so much, and what I like about Robert is he continues to give back. He worked with Kenny Kirby and others, just give back to young people in our community. He's a former retired captain at the United States Naval Academy. Please join me in welcoming Captain Robert Dews. And what we'd like to do, we're going to do the council members as well. Council members, would you mind joining and get a photo with our distinguished honoree, please? Let's give him a round of applause. Our next honoree is John Dove. John is also running for public office, and he's going to make a fine, distinguished member of the Anne Arundel County Council. Let's join hands. Mike Rogers, is that what you call a plug? We're going to now ask after this photograph, we're going to ask his soon-to-be colleagues to join him, right? It's time for the county council members. And in case John don't know how to use Arundel, in case John don't know how to use this photo, make sure you hold on to this photo. Anybody that knows anything about history knows that one of the things that have helped our community through some of the rough times is our spirituality, our people who have great faith. And I want to now introduce our next honoree, Elder Charles James Sr. Our next honoree is Dr. Karine Jordan. He has a PhD and is director of the University of Inclusion at American University. Does that mean go on? Okay, thanks. Still give him a round of applause in his absence. Our next recipient is one of those persons I mentioned earlier. He's got a bright future ahead of him. Cory Mcgregor, would you come forward? This brother, you're going to be learning more about him. My mother loved our next recipient. He was her personal physician, Dr. Earl Phillips. Would you come forward? Our next honoree created a program, Chase Your Dreams. Visionaries are those people who see things that others don't, and they create a world that did not originally exist. Please join me in welcome to the podium, Carl Williams, our next honoree. For those who are watching by television, I want you to know that these honorees were all selected by elected officials who personally selected these men and women to be honored. So we want to thank the elected officials who made these very wise choices. We move now to the Sojourner Truth Award. And what I like about Sojourner Truth, for those who don't know it, it's a reason she changed her name from Isabella to Sojourner. She herself said that she was literally called by God to help change the world. And in many ways, she did just that. We now have one of those women who helped to change the world. It's appropriate that she be one of the first to be honored. I tell people this because I don't want people to miss this history. I keep telling people, if you don't pay attention, you miss the history. I told a group last night what I'm about to tell you, and this is about women. We sometimes marginalize women in this society. Part of it's due to our sexism as a society. When Barack Obama got elected president of the United States, many people gave the Reverend Jesse Jackson credit for his historic campaign in 1984. And what I'm about to say takes nothing from Reverend Jackson. But the fact of the matter is, before there was a Reverend Jesse Jackson, there was a Congresswoman, Shirley Chisholm, who ran for president 12 years before Jesse Jackson. It was Shirley Chisholm who said, women should be judged by what they can bring to the table. Our honorees that we're going to honor in a moment say we have a county that for 366 years did not have black women serve on the Anne Arundel County Circuit Court. For 366 years, and she ran in the Democratic primary, so we got to change that. Please welcome to the podium the Honorable Claudia Barber. As many of you know, the country is about to undergo its first African-American woman to serve on the United States Supreme Court. The country is over 200 years old, and a woman who happened to be African-American has never served on the Supreme Court. But it's not because we don't have distinguished women, great lawyers. It's because for a long time they were overlooked. That's why our next honoree, who's an attorney in her own right, Carl Chandler, should come forward, because she sets the example of what great women or great lawyers can mean and do for our society. Many of you know earlier this year when Black History first got started, one of the things that happened, one of the sad things that happened was many of the HBCUs, the black colleges and universities, were threatened. And one of those institutions was Howard University. What I like about Howard University, and Will, you'll like this as a graduate of Howard University, it has produced some of the finest men and women who matriculated to that institution. Our vice president happened to be from Howard University, and our next honoree is to Dr. Deborah Cartwright. Please. Howard University in the room. Thank you. one wanted to judge history, you look at what was and what is. And that distance between the two tell you how far we've come. I said to you earlier that if you're an African American woman, you could not give birth at Arundel General, what was then called Annapolis General Hospital. Our next honoree, Dr. Monica Jones, is the chair of the Arundel Medical Center's Women and Children's Service. How far we've come. Delegate Henson, who could not be here, if asked to describe our next honoree, she would simply say, she is my right hand. She is the person that makes me all that I can be. Please welcome to the podium our next honoree, Ms. Parker, Chief of Staff of Chanika Henson. Thank you. The county executive earlier talked about how this COVID really showed the disparities that existed, the problems that existed, particularly in our communities that were impoverished, and just the problems that existed, medical care, food. In the Bible it says, feed the hungry, clothe the naked. Our honoree understands that. Our next honoree is Donna Johnson, who's doing just that, feeding the hungry. Last, but certainly not least, is George Phillip, a personal friend who has done so much to make Annapolis a better place. going to ask all the women who were honorees, please get up so we get this group full. All the women first, please come up. The honorees, all the women who are honorees. All of the women who are honorees. Right there, yes, all the women who are honorees. As these women assemble, I want to read a quote from Sojourner Truth. As you are about to hear this quote, remember the time in which she lived. Please remain there for a second. And I'd like to ask the audience, just for a moment, remember who I said this award was named after, Sojourner Truth. I want people to hear this. I think, Vincent, you're the one that came up with this quote, and I want to commend you for coming up with it because I think it reflects something Sojourner Truth saw. What do you think of somebody in slavery? Somebody who had 13 or 18 children, fought to go to court because one of her child was taken from her, and won her child back. What do you think about a woman who said that God had whispered in her ear? Here's what Sojourner Truth said. And think of our honorees. Think of the year that Sojourner Truth said it. And think of the year we're in, 2022. Because of them, I can now live the dream. I am the seed of the free, and I know it. I intend to bear great fruit. Here's the fruit that Sojourner Truth bear. Let's give him a round of applause. Now, if the men will take the place of the women.
We can't do that.
Not quite, right? Okay.
We can't do that.
Let me share this thought with you as we look at these men. Apostle Palmer and his wife and a delegation went to Kenya. There were men that they met in Kenya. Those who know anything about the history of Kenya know who Jomo Kenyatta was. He's called the father of that country. What made Jomo Kenyatta famous, beyond winning the freedom of his people, was Jomo Kenyatta said that men men had a responsibility. That men had a responsibility to lead and to protect their community. Men had that responsibility. Jomo Kenyatta, the father of the independence movement, talked about African Americans. He actually came to America. He met a man named Malcolm X, talked with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And the advice that Jomo Kenyatta gave to Malcolm and Dr. King is advice that I want to leave with you. And for those who are listening and men everywhere who are watching, when problems occur, as they are, last night, health and wellness of our community is a theme. 2 kids were shot. One was wounded. The other was paralyzed. Chief Jackson held a press conference and expressed his outrage. But he also called on the community, called on men to be the shining example for younger men that's coming up. I want to thank all of you for your contributions that you've made. But the reason I made the reference that for our younger brothers who are being honored, great things are still to come. We've got a lot of work to do in our communities. And men have to be involved in those communities. Please join me in thanking these men who show us what an involved community can do. This program, we close this program with the following 3 announcements. The following 3 announcements. There's nothing more important than the midterm elections that's coming up. They're consequential. They're going to make a huge difference. And what I'm asking men and women in this room, the following. Robert Johnson, would you just stand up for a second, Brother Robert? Robert Johnson, the guy there waving who just finished a 100-day fast to call attention to the need to vote. Robert Johnson is working with a group of the Caucus of African American Leaders, along with Dr. Paul. We're going to put together a conference in June where we're going to bring men and women together for the sole purpose of making sure that people go to the polls in great numbers. Please give Robert a round of applause. You can be seated. The second announcement I want to make, again, is on March 11th, the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Awards dinner will take place. It's going to take place at the BWI Westin Hotel. BWI Westin Hotel. As some of you know, we had to reschedule the dinner because of the COVID. We're now going to have it on March 11th. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to have a number of people who are going to be honored at that particular event. We invite all of you to come and participate in that event on March 11th. And then I want to extend a following invitation to all of you that's gathered here. Women History Month is next month. We know about his story. Next month, we're going to talk about her story. We're going to talk about the story of women and what women have done to make America better and not bitter. That's going to be done on March 29th, 6 o'clock p.m. It's going to be here. And I just want you all to know that one of the things that the county executive did that will go down in history, I believe, he had the good wisdom to understand the importance of honoring women. And so he has created an award called the Michelle Obama Award. So 10 women will be selected to receive the Michelle Obama Award. The event will take place here on March 29th. These women have not yet been selected, but I presume they will be from every category, every geographical location we can in the county. And it will be designed for the sole purpose of making sure that children can look up at women and see that these women have made amazing accomplishments. We celebrate Black history because we want to lift up African Americans. We celebrate women because we know that women give birth to it all, right? The first teachers in the world are women. And as I've often said, as I close this out, the two things that Martin Luther King Jr. told us over and over again, I'm a firm believer in this. One, he said that when people of goodwill join hands, America gets better. We saw it when women got the right to vote in 1920. We saw it with the Civil Rights Act of 1964. We saw it when Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday became a national holiday when others said it would not. A reluctant president by the name of Ronald Reagan signed the bill. We saw it when Nelson Mandela walked out of a prison into the presidency. We have seen people of goodwill make America better. We got that. But there was a second message that Dr. King gave. It's the one I often tell people about because it's the most difficult. It's the one we're still struggling with. It's hard, very hard. Dr. King simply said we have to learn to love one another. And what I have discovered is of all the things we need to do, we need to learn to love one another. Now I want to tell you before I do this exercise, which all of you are going to know, there was and this is a true story. When I told this person to turn to somebody, look her dead in the eye, and say, I love you, he did it. And now they're going to get married. Now, while you may not marry the person you look directly in the eye, some of you already married, it is important to know the power of love. So please turn to your neighbor, look him or her directly in the eye, the eyes of the window soul, and just simply say, I love you. Let me tell people, Brother Newton, let me tell you what I know. This comes from experience. When people look other people in the eye and say they love them, if it's true, you get a tingle. You get this little feeling. So if your neighbor, who you looked in the eye and say, I love you, didn't leave you with that little tingle, that ain't love. Because we want to make sure that people love one another, I'm going to ask people one more time. Look your neighbor deep in the eyes. James, look at the woman behind you, right there. Look her deep in the eyes and just simply say, I love you. We end this program. Please enjoy whatever food that is left. Again, March 11th, BWI Western Hotel. March 11th, BWI Western Hotel. Martin Luther King Jr. Awards dinner. And then March 29th, Women's History Month here. And then the big one. April 2nd, the Martin Luther King Jr. Parade in Annapolis, 12 noon. We thank all of you. Brother Lewis Bracy, thank you for all that you do. Renee, he told me to give you a shout out. Renee Clark, stand up, please. Stand up 1 second. Let's give her a round of applause. Good trouble. John Lewis.